When my wife casually said, "My friends think you're not markable enough for me, I could do better," I simply replied, "Then go find better." The words were out before I could stop them, but in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. I'd heard the whispers before, the subtle, quiet digs about how I wasn't enough, how I wasn't her equal. But hearing it out loud from her lips hit differently. That same day, I quietly canceled our plans, the gifts, everything. I didn't say a word after the argument. I just walked out of the room, into the silence of our house, trying to figure out what I was supposed to feel. I should have been angry, right? Should have screamed at her for demeaning me like that. But I didn't. I just felt calm, almost relieved. She wanted someone better. Fine. Let her go. I didn't need to beg her to stay. 2 weeks later, at 400 m, her closest friend called me in tears. "Please answer. Something happened tonight, and it's about you." I didn't answer immediately. The silence of the room pressed on me, and I stared at the phone in my hand. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Let her deal with whatever mess she'd gotten herself into. But I didn't. I picked up the phone and heard Sienna's vocaling through the speaker, her breath uneven. "Please, Brandon," she said. "You need to hear this. Something happened with her tonight. She's gone. I don't know where she is, but you need to come, please." The words barely registered. Gone wasn't a word I ever expected to hear about her. She packed her things, I realized then, just like she said she might. Her absence hung in the air. The space she'd left behind larger than I thought possible. I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes, trying to process the gravity of her leaving. Was this how it ended? Just a quiet departure in the middle of the night, with no confrontation, no real closure. She'd never even asked for a conversation about why things weren't working. The things she had left unsaid were now filling the silence, a weight I couldn't ignore. I heard her footsteps earlier that evening, the soft shuffle of her shoes on the hardwood floor as she paced back and forth. The argument had been ugly, sure, but I thought we could fix it. I thought there was still something left worth saving, but maybe she had already made up her mind. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and glanced at the clock again. It was almost 6:15, Amel. My head was still foggy from sleep, but the events of the before were clearer than ever. She was really gone. I stood up and walked to the closet. The suitcase she had left behind wasn't even packed properly. Clothes haphazardly thrown in, shoes tossed on top without care. I wondered how long she had been planning this. If she'd thought about it for weeks or just decided one night that it was enough. Did she really think she could find someone better? Someone more remarkable than me? I didn't know what hurt more, the words she had said, or the fact that she hadn't even given me a chance to defend myself, to prove that I wasn't the person she thought I was. I needed to think, but the thought of sitting in that empty house, with all the reminders of our life together, felt suffocating. So I grabbed my phone and dialed the number of the one person who might still listen. Her voice was steady when she answered, "Brandon." Maya's voice had always been the calm I needed in the storm of my own thoughts. "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do," I said, my voice tight with frustration. "She's gone." She left in the middle of the night without a word. Maya paused for a moment, her silence giving me space to process, or at least pretend to. "Do you think she's really gone? Or do you think she just needs time?" she asked softly, the words making me flinch. "I don't know. I'm not sure I care anymore. I don't think I'm the man she wanted me to be." My voice cracked the last words, and I hated myself for it. Maya's voice softened further, if that was even possible. "Brandon, maybe it's time you stop trying to fit into a mold she's made for you. You've built something big, something important, and you've been silent about it for too long. It's time to stop hiding." I didn't answer right away. The idea of standing up and show everything I had worked for, everything I had become, felt strange. We'd been living in a narrative where she was the remarkable one, the ambitious one, the one with the shining future. I was just the support. But I had been building my empire quietly, methodically, while she hadn't even noticed. I had made myself small to fit into the world she expected me to occupy. But maybe it was time to stop shrinking. Maybe it was time to show her the man I really was, and not the one she thought she had married. And so I decided I would show her. But first, I had to take care of myself. Because whatever happened next, whether she came back or not, wasn't going to define who I was. Not anymore. This was my moment to step into the light. I spent the next few days in a fog, drifting through like it was a dream. I couldn't stop replaying the argument, The moment she told me I wasn't remarkable enough, like a broken record stuck in my mind. The words deeper, cutting deeper with every passing hour. I didn't know where she had gone or how long she planned to stay away, but the silence in the house felt heavier than any words we had exchanged. 2 days passed without a word from her. My phone stayed silent, except for the occasional message from checking in. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to say. How do you explain to someone that you're not sure if marriage is worth saving when you haven't even had the courage to face it yourself? But something changed on the 3rd day. I woke up to the sound of the doorbell ringing at 4 and followed by frantic knocking. I scrambled out of bed, still disoriented, and rushed downstairs. My heart was racing, unsure if I was about to face a situation I wasn't ready for. When I opened the door, I found her best friend, Sienna, standing there, breathless, her face streaked with tears. "Brandon, please," she pleaded, grabbing my sleeve before I could speak. "You need to hear this. Something happened with her tonight, and it's about you." I stared at her, unsure how to react. The confusion I felt only deepened. "What do you mean? Where is she?" Sienna wiped her eyes and shook her head. She's not here. I don't know where she went. But you need to come. She's gone. We think it's because of you." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The weight of her words hit me hard. "Gone," I repeated, my voice hoarse. "What do you mean gone?" Sienna bit, looking down for a moment. "She left. Packed her things and just left. I didn't know where she was going, but it's like everything just fell apart. I don't know how to fix it, Brandon. She's just gone." I stood there stunned, the chill of the early morning air making my body feel numb. I hadn't expected this, hadn't even considered that she might leave like this, without a word, without even telling me what had really been going on, what had happened between us. Sienna's voice cracked and she grabbed my arm again. "Please. You need to understand. She's not the same, not after that conversation. It's like something broke in her. You have to fix this." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, wanted to demand answers. But another part of me, the quieter part, knew Sienna was right. This wasn't something I could fix on my own. "I don't know what to do," I said, almost to myself. "I didn't think it would go like this. I thought we could talk, work through it." Sienna shook her head, tears still streaming down her face. "Brandon, you didn't listen to her. Not really. She was trying to tell you how she felt, but you were too busy trying to prove something. She didn't feel heard. She felt like she was invisible." The words hit me hard. Invisible. That was what I had made her feel. I thought I had been doing the right thing, supporting her career, letting her be the one in the spotlight. But in doing so, I had made myself smaller. I had let her be the remarkable while I faded into the background. And now she was gone. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. Beneath it was something else. Something sharp. Something that felt like the beginning of a shift. A change I couldn't explain. I didn't know, I whispered. I didn't know she felt like that. Sienna's eyes softened for a moment before hardening again. "That's part of the problem, Brandon. You never asked. You never took the time to ask her what was going on inside her. You just assumed she was fine, assumed everything was okay. And now look where we are." I ran a hand through my hair, pacing in the dim hallway. I didn't realize how much I'd let things slide, how much I had been ignoring. I thought everything would work out. I didn't know I was making her feel small. Sienna looked at me, searching my face. "Then what are you going to do about it?" I paused, the weight of her question hanging in the air. I didn't know the answer. But I did know one thing: I had to stop hiding. It was time to stop being the man who faded into the background. It was time to show her who I really was. "I'm going to fix this," I said quietly, my voice filled with resolve. "I'm going to show her who I really am. No more hiding, no letting her feel like she's the only one who matters." Sienna gave me a sad, almost defeated smile. "Good luck, Brandon, but you better do it quickly. She's already made up about a lot of things." I nodded, my mind racing with plans I hadn't yet formed. As Sienna walked away, I stood there in the doorway, her words still lingering in the space between us. She was right. I had been hiding in plain sight. And now, I had to find a way to stop disappearing. To stop being the man my wife had forgotten to see. I closed the door behind me and stood there, staring at the empty hallway. The silence had never been louder. I had no idea what came next, but I knew I had to change everything. I was no longer the man who would let others decide what my life was worth. I had to show up for myself. And for her. I spent the next few days walking a fine line between dread and determination. My wife was still gone, still silent, and I couldn't bring myself to reach out. Not yet. I knew that if I was going to do this, if I was going to see me in a way she never had before, I needed to do it on my terms. She had built a narrative of me in her mind, one where I was simply the background player in her bright and ambitious life. It was time to stop playing that part. I wasn't just a side character. I was the lead in my own story. I spent hours in the office, the only place that felt like a refuge from the quiet chaos of my thoughts. My company, my real company, was the one thing I could control, the one thing that was completely mine, and it was big. Bigger than I'd ever let her realize. The acquisition offer had come through a month ago, but I hadn't told her about it. She had no idea about the contracts, the deals, the growth. I kept it quiet, kept myself small, just to fit into the mold she expected of me. I'd always let her shine. It's what we did, right? She'd worked so hard, so I'd support her every step of the way, carrying the weight of the house, of the finances. Let her get her accolades, her promotions, praise. I was fine with it, or at least I thought I was. Until I realized that I had become invisible in my own life. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. I pulled up the wire transfer confirmation email again, the one that proved everything. The acquisition of my company for $20 million. My share, $7 million. I'd kept it all tucked away far from her eyes because I didn't want to rock the boat. But now, I needed her to see the truth. I needed to stand in front of her and show her who I was. Show what I had built while she was busy being the remarkable one. The next morning, I woke early and began drafting the email I would send to my lawyer. I needed everything to be airtight, the announcement to be timed perfectly. This wasn't just about money. It was about making sure she understood what I had accomplished. What we had accomplished, even though she hadn't noticed. But then, something unexpected happened. As I typed out the email, the phone buzzed with a message from Maya. She had been my partner for the last 3 years, and we had built something extraordinary together. She knew about the acquisition, the growth, everything. The deal's closing today. Get your ducks in a row. This is the moment you've been waiting for. I took a deep breath. The weight of the decision hit me again, but this time it was different. I wasn't asking for permission anymore. I wasn't going to tiptoe around the truth. I was going to show her who I really was, who I had always been, and who I was becoming. I wasn't the man who had been too busy in the background. I was someone who had built a future, and I wasn't going to anyone, including my wife, take that away from me. I hit send on the email to my lawyer, then stood up and walked to the bedroom, where I knew she'd left her things scattered across the floor. It wasn't a mess. It was more like a symbol. The remnants of the life we had tried to build, the life that started to fall apart the moment we stopped communicating. I had to make this right, for me, for us. I knew what I had to do next. I had to face her. I had to tell her the truth. But first I needed to make sure I was ready. I walked out of the room and into the kitchen, my mind spinning with plans and possibilities. I wasn't sure if she would even listen to me, but that didn't matter. This was my moment. And I wasn't going to let it slip away. I grabbed my phone and the number for the restaurant I had been planning to take her to for months. Long before all of this had gone wrong. It was a place she'd always wanted to visit, but never had the chance. It wasn't just a meal, it was a statement. A way to show her that I could still give her something extraordinary, even if everything else had fallen apart. "Hi, I'd like to make a change to a reservation I have for weekend," I said to the receptionist, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to change the number of guests. It's going to be a special evening." She confirmed the change, and I hung up, my mind already racing ahead to what would come next. The dinner wasn't just a celebration, it was a confrontation. It would be the moment I laid everything out on the table: business, my successes, and my failures. It would be the moment I showed her exactly what I'd been building, even as she had been pulling away. I wasn't going to let her make me feel small anymore. I looked at the calendar on my phone. The date was set. The reservation was locked. It was time to take control of my story. The evening of the dinner arrived, and I could feel the weight of everything hanging in the air. It was supposed to be a celebration, a quiet evening where I'd surprise her with the truth, but I knew deep down that it was more than that. This was the night everything would change. I was going to stand there, in front of her, in front of the people who had shaped our lives, and I was going to show them all who I really was. I arrived early to the restaurant, pacing outside for a few moments before walking in. It was a place we'd talked about visiting for years but never had the chance. The kind of place you went to celebrate a milestone, to mark an occasion. I had made the reservation months ago, when things still felt easy between us. Back when I thought I knew what I was doing. The maître led me to a small table by the window, but I asked to be moved to the semi-private dining area I'd arranged. The staff was expecting me, they knew exactly what I wanted. I needed everything to go perfectly. The room had lit candles, soft lighting, the wine chosen. I wasn't sure if I could make this moment feel right, but would try. She arrived exactly on time. The moment the door swung open, my heart skipped a beat. She walked in, scanning the room with that familiar sense of authority, looking for something she couldn't quite name. Our eyes met, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could be it. Maybe this could be the moment she understood. But then I saw it, the look in her eyes. It was the same look I'd seen in her the last few weeks, distant, cold, like she was already a million miles away from me. "Brandon," she said, voice steady but strained, as she crossed the threshold of the room. "What is all this?" I rose from the table and gestured for her to sit. "It's for you," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I know things haven't been great between us, but I thought maybe, just maybe, this could be a start. A way for us to finally be honest with each other." She hesitated, her gaze flickering around the room as if searching for the words. "Honest," she repeated, the word hanging in the air between us. "Is that what this is? Some kind of grand gesture to prove you're not the man I thought you were?" I did, slowly. "It's not just that. I need to tell you something. Something that's been hiding in plain sight for far too long." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't interrupt. She sat down, folding her arms across her chest, waiting for me to speak. I could see the walls she had built around herself, the fortress that had been erected over the years, and it made the air in the room feel thicker. I took a deep breath, then pulled out my phone. "I've been running my own business for the last 3 years. I've been building something important. You never really knew about it. I didn't want you to, not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't want to take away from your success. I wanted to be your support. I wanted you to shine." She scoffed lightly, almost as if she found the notion of me being a silent partner laughable. "So what? You've been running some startup in secret, and now you're trying to make me feel bad for not knowing." I looked down at the phone, tapping the screen to bring up the wire transfer confirmation. The moment I showed it to her, I saw her expression change, the flicker of disbelief destacable. "My company was just acquired for $21 million, I said, my voice unwavering. "My share is $12.7 million. She stared at the screen for a long moment, her lips pressed tight, her expression unreadable. "You're lying," she whispered, though there was no conviction in her voice anymore. It was more of a reflex, a defense mechanism she had built to protect herself from the reality that was unfolding in front of her. "I'm not lying," I said softly. "I just never told you. I've been handling crisis management for tech companies, doing with things no one else wanted to touch. I've been doing this for years, and I've been successful. But you never asked. You never wondered. You just assumed I was. Just the guy who showed up for dinner, who helped with the bills, who never really mattered." Her eyes widened, and for the first time in a long while, I saw something break through the walls she'd put up. It wasn't anger, or disbelief, or frustration. It was confusion. It was the realization that she had been blind to the head built, while she was busy focusing on her own. I leaned forward, my gaze fixed on her. "I've been supporting us, Cora. I paid the rent when you were struggling in grad school. Took care of the bills when your job was restructured. You never knew because I never wanted you to. I wanted you to feel like you were the one who had it all, the one who was remarkable." For a moment, there was silence. The weight of my words settled between us, and she didn't know how to respond. "You should have told me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you tell me?" I sighed, leaning back in my chair, the moment of vulnerability handily in the air. "Because I thought you were the remarkable one. I thought you were the one who deserved the spotlight. I didn't want to take it from you. I thought being the husband meant supporting you, even if it meant staying in the background." Her expression softened, and I could see the hurt in her eyes, the years of resentment slowly beginning to surface. "You should have told me. I had no idea. I never realized how much you've been carrying, how much you've been doing for us, for me. I didn't want credit, I said quietly. I just wanted to build something for myself. For us. She fell silent again, and I knew that this was the moment of truth. Not just about my business, not just about the money. It was everything we had been to each other. The years of silence, the years of me playing the role of the supportive husband. It was all out in the open now, and there was no going back. I've been hiding from you, I said, my voice rough with the weight of the realization. Hiding who I really am. Hiding the man I've become, but not anymore. I'm done letting you define me. I'm done hiding. The room felt colder now, but the silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was just the space we needed. The space we had never given each other in 7 years of marriage. I never asked you what you wanted, she said softly, her voice trembling. I just assumed you'd always be there. I didn't know you were building something. For yourself. Something big. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle in. I've always been here, Cora. But now it's time for you to see me. To see everything I've been building. She sat back, looking at me like she was seeing me for the first time. The walls were still there, but they were starting to crack. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something different, something real. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like the man I was always meant to be. The days that followed the dinner felt like a blur, a mix of anticipation and regret swirling inside me. Cora didn't return to the apartment. Instead, she spent most of her time with her friends, and I did try to reach out. I knew it was time to give her space, but I also knew something in her had changed. Maybe not for the better, but for the real. And that was something we hadn't had in years, real honesty. I kept replaying the moments from the dinner in my mind. I had shown her everything, my business, the money, the sacrifices I had made for both of us. But what did it really mean? Did it change anything? The anger had been replaced by confusion, by that look in her eyes when she realized how much I had kept from her. But then, she had that same look in her eyes when she saw what I had built, and I couldn't tell if it was admiration, resentment, or mix of both. The silence between us grew. I didn't know if she would come back. I didn't know if she wanted to fix things or if I had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. I didn't want to live in a house that felt like a battlefield. But I didn't know how to move forward either. I found myself sitting on the couch at night, staring at the empty spot where she used to sit, where we used to talk, even if those talks had become about nothing. I'd always assumed that silence was just part of being a couple. But now, I saw how much it had hurt us. The things we hadn't said to each other for so long. The things I had never told her because I thought she didn't need to know. But she needed to know, and she needed me to be honest. I'd spent years hiding in plain sight, afraid that the truth might make her leave. But the truth, I realized now, was the only thing that could save us. I didn't expect her to come back after the dinner. Not that night, not the next. I knew she needed time to process what I had revealed, what we had become. I told myself I was okay with the silence, that it would give us both the time to think, to really understand who we had become, and if we could ever be more than the sum of our broken pieces. It was on the third day after the dinner that she called. I stared at my phone when her name popped up on the screen. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't answer immediately. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. She had been distant, cold, and I had no idea if she was ready to talk, or if I had just pushed her too far. But she called again, and this time, I picked up. Brandon, her voice was quiet, uncertain. I think we need to talk. I swallowed, trying to steady myself. Okay, where? I'm coming to the apartment. I think we need to finish this conversation. She was coming home. I wasn't sure what that meant yet, but it felt like a small victory. Maybe she hadn't given up on us completely. Maybe she still saw something worth fighting for. I got and started pacing the living room, unsure of what to expect when she arrived. She had been gone for days, and I had no idea how she was feeling. I wanted to be the man she needed, the man I had finally become, but I knew the damage I had done. When the doorbell rang, I didn't wait for it to ring again. I opened it and found her standing there, her eyes searching mine, waiting for something. Waiting for an answer she probably didn't think she'd get. I stepped aside to let her in, and we stood there, both of us unsure how to begin. I've been thinking, she started, her voice tight, about everything you said. About everything I didn't see before. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I knew she had been processing, I knew she had been hurting, and I was willing to listen, if she was ready to talk. I never realized how much had taken you for granted, she continued, her words tentative, like she was testing them out. How much I assumed you were always going to be there, always going to support me. And I never once thought about you needed, what you were building. I never asked. I felt the weight of her words hit me, but I didn't feel relief. It was too late for that. It wasn't enough just to apologize, and after everything, we had both let our marriage slip away in silence. She had her dreams, I had mine. But we'd never been in the same room at the same time. Not really. You shouldn't have had to ask, I said, my voice rough. I should have told you. I should have told you what I was building, what I was becoming. But I didn't. I thought I was just here to support you, to let you have the spotlight. And maybe that's where I went wrong. She didn't say anything right away, and for a moment, we just stood there, the air thick with all the things we hadn't said. Finally she spoke, her voice a little stronger this time. What happens now? I didn't have an answer for her. I didn't know what happened now. I wasn't sure if we could fix this, if we could rebuild what we had broken. But I knew I couldn't let us keep living like this. I couldn't let her go on thinking that I wasn't enough for her, that I wasn't worth noticing. I don't know, I said, my throat tightening. But I know I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm not going to shrink just so you can feel bigger. I've been doing that for too long. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in what felt like forever. There was something in her eyes that wasn't quite for it was something else. Something like the possibility of change. I don't know what's going to happen either, she said softly, but maybe that's the first honest thing we've said to each other in years. I nodded. It wasn't the resolution I had hoped for, but it was something. We weren't there yet, but maybe, just maybe, we were on our way. The night of the birthday dinner arrived, and with it, a strange mix of anticipation and dread. I had spent the last few days planning every detail, trying to make sure everything was perfect. The reservations, the wine, the special presentation. This wasn't just a dinner, it was a reckoning. I had planned it for months, back when things still felt easy, before the silence had taken over, before everything had fallen apart. Cora hadn't mentioned it since we last spoke. She hadn't even acknowledged the plans I'd made for the dinner. And I wasn't sure if that meant she wasn't ready to face it, or if she had already made up her mind about what she wanted. But tonight she was going to hear the truth, the whole truth. I arrived at the restaurant early, walking through familiar doors that felt suddenly foreign. The maître greeted me by name, leading me to the semi-private room I had requested. It was set up perfectly, a long table, lit with candles, the elegant hum of quiet conversation in the background. Everything was in place, and yet, something felt off. It was as though the weight of what I was about to do hung over the evening, like a storm cloud, waiting to burst. I sat at the head of the table, glancing at the empty chairs around me. Cora was supposed to arrive any minute now. I kept my phone close, my heart thudding in my chest, waiting for her message, her arrival. But when I looked up and saw her standing in the doorway, the air between us shifted. She looked stunning, as always, but there was something different in the way she held herself. Like she had already made a decision, one that I wasn't sure I was prepared for. She walked in without saying a word, her eyes scanning the room, then finding me. I stood, a tightness in my throat. Cora, I said, unable to hide the hesitation in my voice. Thank you for coming. She nodded, but didn't smile. Her face was unreadable as she passed me and took her seat, the air between us charged with a tension I couldn't ignore. Her friends, Marcus, Devon, Harper, Sienna, started to filter in, murmuring greetings, sitting down. The room filled with polite conversation, but I could feel Cora's distance, like she was holding herself back, guarding herself from whatever was about to happen. I had planned to start slowly, to ease her into it, but the silence between us was unbearable, and I couldn't wait anymore. I think it's time we have a real conversation, I said, my voice firm. It wasn't a question, it was a statement about everything. She didn't look at me immediately, but I saw her eyes flickered her friends, then back to me. I could almost see the walls going up around her again, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. Not this time. I know things haven't been good between us, I continued, my heart pounding as I prepared myself to expose everything. But I want you to understand something. I've been hiding things. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to show you who I really was. What I've been building. Her expression softened for a second, but she didn't speak, and I pressed on, unable to stop now. I've been running a company, a successful one, for 3 years now. I saw her lean forward slightly, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge, like she wasn't sure if I was joking, or if she was hearing the truth for the first time. I never told you because I didn't want to take away from your success, I said, the words tasting bitter as they left my mouth. I didn't want to make you feel less. So I stayed in the background. I supported you. I thought that was what a good husband did. But I wasn't just standing by. I was building something of my own. Something that's worth something. I paused, watching her process it. Her face was a mixture of shock, confusion, and something that I couldn't place, but that made my chest tighten. I've been making millions while you were doing your thing, Cora, I said, feeling the weight of the words land between us. My company just got acquired for 21 million. My share of that is $7 million. The silence that followed was deafening. She didn't speak. She didn't even blink. She just stared at me, trying to process the information. And I let the silence stretch out. I could feel the gaze of our friends on me, their attention locked on the unfolding drama. But this wasn't about them. It was about Cora. It was about her understanding who I had become, who I was. You don't believe me, I said, my voice shaking now. But I'm showing you the truth. I've been running this company for 3 years. While you were busy building your career, I was building mine. And I kept it quiet, kept it hidden, because I thought you me to be the one in the spotlight. But I was wrong. I looked around at the faces of her friends, trying to gauge their reactions, but they all seemed frozen, unsure how to respond. Only Sada met my eyes, her expression softening slightly. It felt like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something. Cora finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Why didn't you tell me? The question hit me harder than I expected. I thought I had known the answer, but hearing her ask it, hearing the hurt in her voice, made me realize how much I had failed her. I didn't think you would understand, I said, my voice cracking. I thought you were happy being the successful one, that you didn't need to know what I was doing. I wanted to stay out of the way. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. I wasn't sure what she was thinking, but I knew one thing sure: this wasn't just about business anymore. This was about everything we had been to each other, about how much we had let slip through the cracks because we never bothered to ask the right questions. I've spent too long hiding from you, I said, my voice more certain now. But I'm done. I'm not hiding anymore. She took a deep breath and blanched ran the table, at her friends who were watching us, waiting for the fallout. Then, finally, she looked back at me. Then don't hide anymore, she said quietly. But know that this is going to change everything. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was looking at her, really looking at her, and I knew she wasn't just talking about tonight. She was talking about everything that came after. The aftermath of the dinner settled over me like a heavy fog. Cora didn't say much after that moment at the table. She hadn't even looked at me the same way. She sat there, her arms crossed, the air thick between us. I thought maybe she'd explode, maybe she'd leave right there and then, but she didn't. She just sat in silence, absorbing everything I'd thrown at her. Our friends were awkward, unsure how to handle the tension. Sienna had her eyes down, Marcus kept glancing between me and Cora, and even Devon looked uncomfortable. Harper, of course, still, her face unreadable as always, but she didn't speak up. They were all in shock, trying to process the truth they the secrets I'd kept. Finally, Cora stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm going to the bathroom, she said, her voice tight, barely above a whisper. I nodded, not trusting myself to say anything. She left without another word, and I was left alone, surrounded by the remnants of a dinner I had spent months planning, now tainted by the raw honesty I had finally unleashed. I could feel the pressure building in my chest, the weight of everything crashing down on me. This wasn't how I had imagined it. This wasn't how I thought it would go. I wanted her to understand. I wanted her to see me, to really see the man I had become. But now that it was all out there, I wasn't sure she could ever look at me the same way. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and stared at it for a moment, wondering if I should say something. But what could I say? I'd already said it all, hadn't I? My entire life, my sacrifices, all laid bare. There was nothing left to hide. But would she even care? Would she be able to get past the shock of it all? The minutes felt like hours as I waited, the silence stretching longer and longer. My eyes kept drifting back to the door, waiting for her to return, but the longer she stayed gone, the more I felt the distance growing between us. When she finally came back, her face was unreadable. She walked straight to the table, pulled her chair out, and sat down without saying a word. Her hands were folded in front of her, and she stared at the table, like she was avoiding looking at me. I tried to speak, but the words felt stuck. What could I say now? I'd already put everything on the table. I had laid out my truth, and now she was here, distant. And I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know if we could fix this. Could we even go back? She finally looked up, and when she met my eyes, there was something new in her expression. Something raw, something I couldn't place. But it wasn't the anger I had expected. It was a mix of disbelief and something else, something I wasn't sure I was ready to face. "You've been lying to me for years," she said, her voice steady but cold. "I thought I knew you. I thought I understood everything. But this is something I never saw coming." I felt the sting of her words, but I didn't shy away. I deserved them. I had kept so much from her, thinking I was protecting her, but in doing so, I had buried myself. I had buried us. "I wasn't lying to you, Cora," I said, my voice softer now. The weight of it all finally sinking in. "I was hiding it, think you'd see me any other way. I didn't want you to think I was trying to one-up you, to take away from your success. I thought being invisible was the only way we could make it work. But I was wrong. I shouldn't have hidden who I was. I shouldn't have hidden the life I was building." She didn't respond right away, and I could see her mind working, trying to process everything I had said. "You were building something behind my back," she said, her voice tight with emotion. "You were successful, Brandon, and I didn't even know. And when I asked you about your work, you didn't tell me. You never trusted me enough to share it." "Why? I didn't want to take anything from you," I said, my throat tight. "I didn't want you to feel like I was trying to overshadow you. I thought you needed to be the one in the spotlight. And I thought that was enough. But it wasn't. Not for me. And not for you." She shook her head slowly, the weight of my words sinking in. "I've been so caught up in my own world, in my own success, that I didn't even think about what you might need. I thought you were fine. I thought you were just supporting me. But you weren't just supporting me, were you? You were building something of your own, something I didn't know about." She paused, looking down at her hands, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. "And now you want me to see you. But how do we go from here? Brandon, how do we fix this?" I didn't have the answer, but I knew one thing for sure: we couldn't keep going like we had been. We couldn't keep hiding from each other, pretending like everything was fine when it wasn't. "I don't know how to fix this," I said, my voice quiet. "But I know I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm not going to let you think I'm just the guy who fades into the background. I want you to see me, Cora. I want you to see everything I've built, everything I've been working for." She looked up at me then, and for the first time in days, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't just confusion. It wasn't just anger, it was something else. Something that made my heart beat a little faster. "I don't know if I can see you the way I used to," she said softly. "But I want to try. I want to see you, Brandon. I don't know if we can fix everything, but maybe we can start over. Maybe we can build something new, together." It wasn't a promise, but it was a beginning. A chance to rebuild, to start fresh. Maybe it wouldn't be easy. Maybe it would take time. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like there was hope. The room was silent for a long moment, and then I reached on, took her hand, feeling the warmth of it against my skin. We didn't say anything more. We didn't need to. Not yet, but the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was just the space we needed to figure out what came next. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what that might be. The days after the dinner were a blur, a strange mix of quiet moments and unspoken tension. Cora and I didn't rush back to what we had before, nor did we pretend that everything was fine. But something had shifted, and I could feel it every time we looked at each other. It wasn't the same, but it was real. We weren't pretending anymore. I kept my distance, giving her space to process everything. I knew she had a lot to think about. So did I. The pieces of us that had been scattered for so long were starting to come together. But it wasn't clear what the picture would look like. I spent more time at the office, making sure everything with the acquisition went smoothly. The company had finally been sold. The emails, the phone calls, the contracts, it was all happening so fast now. Maya was still with me, and we had a lot of work to do to ensure everything was in place for the next chapter. I was the public face of the business now, and that came with its own set of pressures. But it also came with a sense of pride, one that I hadn't felt in years. The moment I had been building towards was here. Still, every time I came home, I found myself wondering what kind of life we were going to have. Was it possible to rebuild the trust we had lost? To turn this moment into something lasting? I didn't know. Cora kept to herself for the first few days after the dinner. But then, one evening, she surprised me. She came into my office, stammering at the door, her face unreadable. I looked up from my laptop, my heart skipping a beat. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice low. "About everything." I nodded, setting the laptop aside. She took a deep breath, stepping into the room. "I don't know where we go from here, Brandon. I don't know what's next. But I don't want to be stuck in this place where we're pretending. I don't want to hide from each other anymore. If we're going to do this, if we're going to move forward, we need to be honest with each other. No more secrets. No more silence." I felt something shift in me, a weight lifting. This was it. This was what I had been waiting for, her willingness to try, to fight for us. "I agree," I said, standing up. "I don't want to hide anymore either. I don't want to be a man who fades into the background. Not anymore. I'm done with that." She nodded, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. But I knew in that silence that we were on the same page. This wasn't going to be easy, but at least we were both ready to face it together. "I've been working on something," she said suddenly, her voice hesitant but determined. "I've been thinking about what we want. And I think it's time to take a chance. To really step out there, not just in our business, but..." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice soft, uncertain. She looked at me, a small smile forming on her lips. "I've been given an opportunity to take my career to the next level, Brandon. To stop hiding, to step out into the world and show everyone what I can really do. But it's not just about me. It's about us, about who we are together." The words hit me harder than I expected. I had always known Cora was driven, talented, capable of so much. But hearing her say it like this, hearing her claim it for herself, made something inside me shift. "I'm ready to build something," she continued. "But I don't want to do it alone. I want us to build this together. Not just our businesses, but our lives. I want to stop hiding from the truth of who we are, Brandon. I want us to stop pretending." My chest tightened, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I wasn't afraid of failure or rejection or the unknown. "I want that too," I said, my voice clear. Strong. "I'm done being the background character. I'm ready to be a part of something bigger with you. We'll build this together." She stepped forward then, closer to me, her eyes never leaving mine. "Then let's start now," she said softly. And in that moment, that we weren't just starting over. We were starting something new, something real. We didn't have all the answers, we didn't have a plan yet. But for the first time in a long while, we had something to look forward to. We had the truth between us, raw and unfiltered. And that true truth was the foundation of everything we would build from here. I reached out, taking her hand in mine, and together we stepped into whatever came next. No more pretending. Just us, and that was enough.